Mike,
Steve.
while we're writing season 2 of The Last Resort, what we should really do with our times, we could discuss the characters' favourite movies.
Interesting concept, Steve, because I like movies and, well, you like movies and our characters like movies too.
Then it's settled. The Last Resort Movie Club is born. Good evening and welcome to another Bad Scripts Presents The Last Resort Movie Club. With me, as always, joining me is the ever-present Mr. Mike Garlia. Hi, Mark. I don't know who Mark is.
Who's Mark?
I don't know.
I've only known you for 20-odd years, Steve, and you finally got my name wrong.
I think there's a genuine level of tiredness that has meant I am unable to pronounce words correctly.
Or say the name of your best friend who you've known for more than half your life. Maybe I'm secretly two-timing you with a Mark, and that's what's come on. The truth always comes out. So I'll tell you what I want. What I
really want
for this podcast is just a really good show.
Well, I think that the secret here is that when me and you get together, when two become one, all I can say is let's crack on with this week's episode. Do you have a synopsis for us around this movie? And this week it's a movie and it's the favourite of Donna, our quiet southern girl. She's a nice girl. She's a quiet girl. And she loved her movies too. So let's find out. Mike, would you please do the honours and tell us what this week's movie is?
This week's movie came out in 1997. So we're not doing the usual 80s style films for this one. So we're bringing it much more modern, bearing in mind that Last Resort is based in 1999. So it's a relatively new favourite film and was made on a budget of 25 million. It made over 100 million worldwide. It was a box office sensation, and it featured 5 of the hottest performers of the 90s, which was the Spice Girls. And the movie we're covering today is SpiceWorld.
Woohoo! I cannot tell you how excited I am to discuss this movie, Mike. Words cannot convey the level of what the fuckery that I have in my mind.
Was painful. There's no other word to say it. It was incredibly painful. I had to watch the film in 3 separate servings. I could not get through it in one go, unfortunately. But I do have a synopsis of SpiceWorld for anyone that hasn't seen it, which I'm more than happy to give.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Shall we hear what Donna had to say first, and then you can read the synopsis of the movie, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just get the recording.
Favourite movie? Well, one I saw recently that really sort of inspired me, was SpiceWorld. So the Spice Girls, they're everywhere at the moment. They're huge, right? They made a movie, and it was about their friendship and their uncompromising way which they stuck 2 fingers up at authority and said, we're going to do it our way, and it's all about girl power. And I really wish I had that level of confidence to do that myself, because deep inside I'm a little bit of a feminist, and I think that it's only right that girls go out there and take what they want. And so I was really inspired after I watched this movie, and I love Richard E. Grant as well, which so that made it all worthwhile. So yeah, I think my favourite film would have to be SpiceWorld, starring the Spice Girls.
Okay, Mike. Well, that was Donna's opinion on the movie. Are you perhaps going to give us the lowdown now then about what this movie actually is, and then we can get forward to discussing this hot mess?
I think Donna seriously needs to get her head checked, to be honest with you. Just even listening to that, I was cringing inside. So yes.
It was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. So here is the overview of SpiceWorld, the movie. And I'm reading this verbatim. Hang on to your knickers, pump up your platforms, and fasten your seatbelts, because the Spice Girls, Emma Bunton, Baby Spice, Jerry Halliwell, Ginger Spice, Melanie Brown, Scary Spice, Melanie Chisholm, Sporty Spice, and Victoria Adams, Posh Spice, are taking center stage in SpiceWorld. It is a 1997 British musical comedy directed by Bob Spears and written by Kim Fuller, and the film stars the pop group, the Spice Girls, who all play themselves. It follows a similar vein to the Beatles' A Hard Day's Night and depicts a series of fictional events leading up to a major concert at London's Royal Albert Hall. Liberally interspersed with dream sequences and flashbacks, as well as surreal moments and humorous asides. So that is the overview of SpiceWorld.
Can I just interject there that I object to the term humorous asides?
Asides.
Asides would have been fine, because I genuinely believe that there was a complete lack of humor in this entire movie of any level.
So that's always a good start to touch on, because I don't know if you noticed this. I know they're playing heightened versions of themselves, and they're trying to convey comedy through it. I don't think I've never seen a film where not a single joke or situation lands.
It is, like you say they're playing heightened versions of themselves. To me, it just felt like really bad acting. Like they were trying to be themselves, but just very, very poorly. And it was a lot sort of, when you did drama at school and you were told to go off in groups and come back and perform something. It felt very much like one of those hammy performances. It really, really didn't land for me. And I don't know about you, but I didn't like any of them afterwards. I thought, there'll be some endearing qualities to them. We'll get to know a bit more about them as people, but they were completely one-dimensional characters. They were sarcastic and bitchy to each other all the time. Everybody that worked with them, that was making them famous and making them lots of money, they just bitched about all the time. They didn't want to do the show most of the time, so they didn't obviously give a shit about their fans. It genuinely felt like a big middle finger up to everybody that had made them famous over the previous 3 years, And you kind of say, well, maybe, just maybe you should show a little bit more appreciation.
I will. Do you know what? We're going to be very light. I think we might split our listeners here, especially those who are fans of SpiceWorld, because I know some of our listeners are fans. I'm of the same opinion as you. They genuinely did not seem to like each other at all. And I think even later on, towards the end of the film, in the end credits, Baby Spice asks the director if she can punch Posh Spice directly in the face.
No, she didn't.
And I don't know why.
She didn't. She
said,
says,
"Can I hit her?"
No, she says, and she wasn't talking about Posh Spice. She said, like Victoria would, because Victoria's got the face like she would slap you, and Emma was saying she wants to have that kind of attitude. She wanted to be that kind of a punchy. So she wasn't trying to punch a bandmate. She just had wanted to have a bit more edge, because she was Baby Spice. And it was all a bit flowery and a bit lollipops, and
Let me explain where that would have been misreferenced. Then is because during the film I was writhing around the carpet, screaming, "Please make it stop! Please make it stop!"
And you felt like punching people several times during the movie, or were you punching yourself in the face just to try and get some minor amount of relief?
So a few revelations for me in this one. One, the only respite I felt I got was during the many, many song interludes. And then I also realized during the song interludes that I really don't like Spice Girls music. But it was a relief to listen to it.
It was familiar. There was no argument. There was nobody being sarcastic and nasty to each other. It was just a song that you knew. You might not like it, but you knew it. and so it was like a comfortable pair of shoes. They weren't pretty, but you wore them anyway.
So I do have a question that perhaps you can answer for me here, right? So one of the minor kind of throughputs throughout it is about, and it's what the Spice Girls were known about, girl power.
Right.
So it's all about girl power. It's all about taking control. I mean, they were massive for that. And yeah, I'm all on that and stuff on that bus. But they're being told what to do by Richard E. Grant's character and pretty much do whatever he says. And I felt that they lost that plot. They lost that control and power because they couldn't even get a day off. It was like, no, you're not having a day off, or you're not going to do that. And I know they kind of rebelled, but they rebelled in this way that was like, we're kind of going to be angry with you, but then we're going to be joking, but then we're not joking. Then we're going to be angry with you again. Then we're going to love you again. And it just kind of went backwards and forwards. And I think they missed a real trick on this empowerment piece, taking control of their own destiny, because they weren't in control of very much.
I mean, and they were trying to make out, and you see this partway through the film, that they weren't a manufactured band, which everybody knows the Spice Girls were put together, by the record industry.
No, they were.
Auditioned, brought in, boom, 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 boom. You make the group that we want. But there's this kind of false, oh, look at us in the cafe performing in front of our friend who we don't know why she's in the film, other than she pops a sprog out a little bit later on.
Who is the friend? Who is the random friend that just keeps turning up?
She turns up at the party being very pregnant, and you're like,
they take her to no. They take her to a raving dance nightclub while she had just said, I am heavily pregnant, I'm about to drop. And then they immediately abandon her and go and dance on the dance floor to their own music, where she then goes into labor, which she kind of saw coming. It was just,
it's before, isn't there like a press conference? She turns up and they're like, who are you? And she's like, oh, I'm nobody. I thought for a minute, is she like the missing sixth member? Like she was in the band, but then she got pregnant. And
it's never explained.
It just doesn't. I don't understand why there's another person there.
No, nothing's explained.
I mean, because all the others are such great vocalists. Maybe she was. Sorry, I nearly finished that without laughing. But
so look, let's go back to the beginning. Yeah. Let's go back to the beginning then, because we're jumping around. We're so excited.
It is, and I don't think this is a movie we need to go through verbatim from start to finish.
I want to call out some crazy bits. I want to call out some crazy bits. Yeah.
So let's start in the beginning and pick out some bits that are of real discerning content. I don't know.
So they have this. So they start obviously there on Top of the Pops, which was which no longer runs, but and then we see really quickly Richard E. Grant introduced, who has got probably the best sideburns. They are coiffed.
Yeah,
they are styled.
I remember a colleague of mine used to have sideburns quite similar to that at one point back in the late 90s. So, Mike, if I'm sure we can dig out a picture of you with those amazing sideburns at some point.
Just
keep an eye out on the socials for that one.
He clearly saw my picture and modelled himself and his character on me.
And the telling thing there is that Richard E. Grant's sideburns were the best thing in this movie.
They were they had a life of their own.
They had more character than the entire Spice Girls.
Do you think he said to himself, "I'm doing my best here"? Because so he is the band manager and he travels with the band. You've got then Alan Cummings, a Scottish actor who's also there, who's with a camera crew, but not really. Like at times, I thought, do they even know he's there? Does he even know he's there? Is he real, or is he just? He just seems to do his own thing. I don't.
Yeah, it was like, is he a paparazzi, or is this like an insider documentary that he's doing? Because it's not really any kind of narrative there. It's just, he's there to find out. But do they know? Is he allowed to be there? And
is he meant to be doing Fly on the Wall? A Fly on the Wall type documentary?
But it doesn't explain. We don't know. And also, why is he doing an English accent? Because at this point, Alan Cummings is a well-known actor, right? He's already an established performer in his own right. Why does he need to be doing a dodgy Cockney accent when he would be perfectly legitimate to have a Scottish journalist following somebody around. I don't understand.
So this is why SpiceWorld the movie to me is a paradox, because he says at the very end credits where it's not really a blooper reel, it's the actors playing themselves, and he actually turns around to the director and says, "Can I just ask, why am I doing an English accent?" And it's not really explained. The camera kind of just carries on moving across. So, and the paradox is, the film is self-aware enough to say we know we're really shit, but knowing we're really shit and carrying on with it. It's just,
they're like they were like, right, we're gonna roll with it. We're just gonna go with it. Right, this is cheesy as fuck. But what got me, right? Cameos. Did you count the number of cameos in this movie? Because I didn't. But there were a lot.
I didn't. So Elton John suddenly turns up and has a brief scene with the girls. They're in just a random corridor scene. Richard D. Grant is going mental. With Richard D. Grant and Alan Cummings, do you think they had a bit of a bet off screen of who could be the hammiest and hammy it up the most? Because at times they were trying to out-screech each other.
I do wonder, if they just went, you know what? We know what this is. We're getting paid a shit ton of money for it. Let's just roll with the punches. Let's just do it, and let's just go full on and not worry about it.
Yeah.
Because they're both bona fide actors of some quality and have both.
Richard Grant, Academy Award nominee, or did he win it?
I don't remember, but I don't think he did. No, I think
that was quite recent actually. Then we're introduced to Dennis. Dennis is the driver of the Union Jack bus, who is also known as Meatloaf, who for some reason keeps punning his own songs with whatever he says.
And the problem with that is, do you think that was for the parents? Because obviously this movie is aimed at like 12-year-old girls, right? So do you think that was a little aside for the parents to go, there's something in this movie for you just to have a titter at, even though this movie isn't for you? So that's Meatloaf. The kids don't know. They just see him as some old bus driver. But actually, we know he's a megastar who's much more of a credible performer than the Spice Girls will ever be. I think
him, Elton John, the rest of the singers that all turn up, they're like, we're tapping into a younger audience here. They're going to be so intrigued that we're in this film with the Spice Girls that they're going to come and listen to my music. So I really don't know, because I do know there was a long list of British celebrities and actors and musicians that wanted to be in this film. They wanted to be on that zeitgeist. So I think what they did is they made a mistake of just shoehorning anybody who's anybody into that. And I get it's all heightened and stuff. I don't know. So if I was playing myself, could I play myself really badly where I'm not actually myself anymore? That was the question I kept asking myself when I was watching these girls, because they've got the easiest parts because they know who they are.
But they also have no formal actor training and were just, it was pretty it was very hammy and camp, wasn't it? And
so you're saying Scary is just naturally scary?
I think she genuinely is. And to be fair, she's probably about the most believable, which doesn't say a lot, but, I think at no point during the movie did I know what was going on. Did I know what the real genuine plot was? I know they were going to put on a show at the Royal Albert Hall that was then going to be beamed around the world. So,
they didn't want to do the gig, I think, and they're just tired of being told what to do.
Let's get this. So this was made in 1997, right? They had their breakthrough in 1996, and they're already bored. They're already sick of being megastars, right?
I know.
But they're making a movie about it. You're like, what? Why are you complaining?
Whoever pitched this movie and thought it was a good idea was absolutely off their faces. I am not kidding. So very quickly on, right, and I do want to cover this. There was a line that was said that I actually felt a bit offended with.
Yeah, go on then. Tell me.
I think it was Richard E. Grant, or it could have been Alan Cummings. I can't remember which one because I never wrote it down. Turned to the Spice Girls about some performance they're doing and talks to them about acting, and then they said, I think they said, does anyone care if Marilyn Monroe could act? Right. So they're comparing them to Marilyn Monroe and said no one cared if she could act, basically saying they care more about how she looked, right?
Yeah,
now,
of course. Which is
Marilyn Monroe was an incredible actress and a
She
tour
was.
de force of comedy. She was amazingly talented.
She was, but the problem is that's not what she's famous for. That's the problem now. Is because anybody who's seen Some Like It Hot or anything, you can see the genuine ability that the woman had, but she's become a parody of herself almost in the Standing Above the Great and everything that she's now well known for amongst in certain circles, and that's a shame because you see the same reversed with Brad Pitt, I think, because he's a good looking guy. His acting prowess is understated because the fact that they think he's in movies just because he looks good.
Yeah, and I've got the picture of him stunned the great as well, and it was a bit floppy,
in that white dress. Yeah,
in that white dress. Yeah,
I mean, he should have worn underwear on that because that isn't a pretty sight. But
he made it work though, just about.
Yeah, I mean, but he's done some great movies. When we're talking about Meatloaf, he was in a film with Meatloaf, wasn't he? He was in Fight Club with Meatloaf, and
that's right.
And again, more credible performances for both of them than in this movie.
I think it saved Meatloaf because Fight Club did come out after SpiceWorld the movie. So unless that was the calling card where he said, look, have you seen me in SpiceWorld? I do really well in Fight.
I'd drive the coach.
Drive a huge Union Jack bus, which sorry. How big was it to get all that stuff on the inside?
I think there was a kind of Doctor Who TARDIS joke in there that when you were on the inside, it was massive, and on the outside, it was just a double-decker bus. But you know how they kept going on about trying to go out the back door and be discreet? Don't drive around in a fucking giant Union Jack
with the Spice Girls literally on the side. I mean, if that's driving, but they just drive aimlessly around. They don't seem to really go anywhere.
But then they flew to the other side of the world, but then the bus was still there. Oh, they went to Milan, but then the bus was there. So why fly if the bus was going there anyway? If it was so comfortable inside,
the bus could fly as well. Okay, I've got to cover this one. So we talked about loads of people turning up. Roger Moore keeps turning up really randomly, saying the most batshit crazy things I've ever heard anyone say. I don't know if he's riffing Bond or riffing a Bond baddie because he's stroking a cat a lot.
But then if you look at the opening credits, they were a bit Bondified. There's all the silhouette stuff and the dancing, and there's music a bit like a Bond movie. And I wonder if with Roger Moore they've gone, he is Bond. Let's make him the villain, though.
But he's not the villain. He's not the villain. So
you're led to believe he's the villain.
You're led to believe that Richard E. Grant, as the manager, wants to fail. He wants the Spice Girls to fail because Sir Roger Moore, who plays the chief, is spitting off really random things to him. Like like the fire tree comes forth. And he's like, what? And even Richard E. Grant is just kind of like, I don't know what he said to me just then. I think he's saying this. But if you look at, so who is the chief? Who is Sir Roger Moore? Because he's in this layer, right? But he's got golden discs of music around the wall. But then he's got consoles everywhere.
This is the archetypal music exec, isn't he? He's supposed to be the evilness of the music industry, that kind of selfish megalomaniac that we're supposed to believe is heading it all up, And so I think that there's parodies there with something evil, but we're never quite. It's never quite. It's always with a little bit of a funny tone, like with the piglet and things. It's always a little bit like.
If anyone can explain at the end of the film why Sir Roger Moore is feeding a piglet with a baby bottle, please write in and tell us, because it was the final straw for me. That was it right then when I was like, what the fuck is he doing?
You got to that point before you realized it was the final straw. I got about 3 minutes in.
So somebody has gone out and found a piglet to give him, to put him in the film and say, right, just stand there, say these lines and feed this pig.
So Roger, please hold the pig and feed it with this bottle. Oh, okay, right. Well,
say this line.
Yeah. Hello.
Honestly.
And it's like, you do realize he's a knight of the realm, Sir Roger Moore. I mean, I don't know if he was at this point, but either way.
Today's the day before yesterday, and tomorrow will be something new. You know what to do. It's things like that. It was just. So even then, right?
All I can hope is that they paid him a shitload of money to do it, and he did. He probably spent like 2 days in the studio because he's only ever on his own in the shots. So they've obviously just gone. I tell you what, he might have even gone film it in my house, and then they've just gone round with a few props and gone. We'll film it in there. There's a whole raft of money, Sir Roger. Thank you very much for your participation.
He must have. I mean, that £25 million budget went, and a lot of that must have gone into London because you see a lot of London, but it's the same sets mostly. They must have paid him, and I hope they did for him to actually do that. And I hope when he watched it, he just looked and went, "That's not what they told me this was going to be." I bet he thought he was in some amazing film.
Yeah. Well, it could have been anything, couldn't it? It could have been. He could have thought it was in a Bond movie, and he was finally playing the bad guy. He thought, "Oh, this is my comeback with Pierce Brosnan." At the time, I would imagine.
So then Jules Holland also has a cameo. He's the band leader for the Spice Girls. He even says that was perfect without being any good.
Yeah.
That's what he said. And it's riddled with lines like that throughout, where they're kind of giving a wink to the camera to go, it's a bit shit, just go with it. Yeah, and then that's where the random pregnant woman turned up, and it was the weirdest scene. So she is heavily pregnant. She comes in. They're all like, "Whoa, yeah!" They stop rehearsing and they sit down with her, and then she says, "How's things going?" She went, "Well, not very good. Trevor left me," and there's no emotion to it. He's just okay. Whoever it was, a boyfriend or a husband, has left this pregnant woman. She's now gonna raise this child on her own, seemingly, and they were just like, "Oh yeah, you didn't need Trevor. Trevor,
girl power."
Yeah, so, and then that's it. That's the no. Trevor left me, and I'm really upset. And I don't know what to do, and I'm a little bit lost. And I need some help. It's just like, oh yeah, Trevor left me. But anyway, onwards and upwards.
Well, it wouldn't matter if she said, "I really need some help," because they just buggered off and left her anyway after they'd done that. So, like, come to the press conference. Yeah, come on, be together. Yay. And then they just buggered off and did the thing. And
they made it all about them. They made it immediately about them because there was that fantasy scene, if you remember, where they're all living in like this council house. And they've all got the hairs and scarves. And
it's supposed to be in the future, wasn't it? When they
I don't know what it was because
they all had kids. They were all talking about being mums and being grown.
Yeah, and the houses are
weird now because when we look retrospectively at this now, they all pretty much do have kids and are mums, but aren't living.
Why did all their accents change? Why did they all suddenly become very northern? all oh yeah, I ain't my kids. Yeah, they're bloody bastards.
Yeah.
It's just like
they may have met your mum. Like I don't know. It's it's just one of those things. They've obviously done a thing where they've gone, what would be really council-y? And they've gone, I know, northern people. They're really common. Let's just stick some northern people in it. And I know that various members of the Spice Girls are northern, but not all of them.
I think
Jerry
just two of them
is not, and Jerry's not northern, is she? And
Sporty's
neither is
Liverpool.
Emma. Yeah, but Jerry and Emma definitely aren't. And Victoria, where's Victoria from? She's from down south as well.
She's from down south.
So only the Mells are northern, right?
Yeah.
Manchester
and Liverpool.
Leeds and Liverpool. That's right. Leeds and Liverpool. So why did they all suddenly become northern? Because I know, because that's a little more common.
Why did anything happen? Because then there's all these random dancing and Alan Cummings again running around like a freaking mentalist for no reason. I don't think even the cameraman and the sound technician with him know what's going on.
So let's talk about the real baddies as well then. The newspaper guys.
The Daily Event.
The Daily Event, which is a random name for a newspaper, but we don't want to get sued by any of the newspapers we might sound like, so let's call it something completely off the wall. Barry Humphries, better known as Dame
Everett.
Dame Edna Everidge. That's
right.
So let's talk about Dame Edna Everidge at the performer Barry Humphries, who played Dame Edna, randomly being the bad guy in this movie.
And Jason Fleming with him as well.
Of Lock, Stock fame and a few other great movies around the time. And
So
also,
this is what I didn't get. This is what I didn't get about the
Dr.
day of the
Hyde,
event.
did he not?
Yeah, no, he
Dr.
did.
Jekyll and
Yes,
Mr.
he
Hyde
did.
in
He did.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen a few years later.
He's a very good actor. But this is what I didn't get. So he says he's the chief of this newspaper. He's the boss. He said he's sick of them being on the front of his papers. So he takes it upon himself to try to destroy the Spice Girls.
I think it's because he's saying that them being famous isn't selling papers. Them getting along doesn't sell papers. So he needs some controversy to sell the papers. He needs some fallout to sell the papers. So them getting along and being successful doesn't really cut it. They need some fallout. So he wanted to.
We're keeping you up, mate.
Yeah, sorry about that. he wanted. He wanted to break them up in order to make money for selling stories. And let's not even mess around here. He is essentially being Rupert Murdoch. That's what Barry Humphrey's character is, isn't it?
God help us all. God help us all if he's basing his motivation on anyone like that as well. But Steve, when they catch this plan, why does it start raining and thunder and lightning inside the building all over Jason Fleming?
I think he just genuinely is that. Well, there's so much weird imagery in this movie that I wasn't surprised by it, and I just kind of at that point went, "Yeah, whatever." Okay, all right.
I'm pulling my hair out at this point.
When they have the flashback and they go to the cafe. Now we've not seen the cafe owner before, and we didn't see the cafe owner afterwards. And I was like, "What's going on?" And the cafe owner, I don't know if you've ever seen the Phoebe Waller-Bridge series that she made, the very famous one. I can't remember the name of it now.
That famous.
Yeah, no, but Fleabag, massively popular across the world, catapulted Phoebe Waller-Bridge like into international stardom. The guy who's the cafe owner plays her dad in Fleabag. But yeah, they go and they like sing Wannabe, a better version of Wannabe, I'd like to point out, than the version that actually got released. It was a bit funkier, I noticed. The backing track was better in their supposed version than the reality of one of the biggest tracks of the 90s. And they performed in front of the cafe owner and their friend, who wasn't pregnant at the time, but was the only girl not in the band. and at the time, I might have gone, why am I not in the group? What have I done to deserve not being part of this? Why are all six of us friends and only 5 of you were in the band? That seems a little bit, like they're excluding her a bit. Don't you think?
Well, are they playing on the Sixth Beatle there? And the fact that he never made it into the band, the Sixth Spice. What kind of spice?
Chinese spice.
Chinese spice. Okay. So Richard. So they decide to employ Richard O'Brien.
The bad guys do, yeah. They get the guy who wrote the Rocky Horror Picture Show, an iconic stage show and movie, and also the host of the successful game show, The Crystal Maze.
And also he was in The Wolves of Willoughby Chase.
Yes, that's right.
Classic Victorian film.
Mm-hmm. He plays is he supposed to be a hitman or a private investigator? It's all very kind of like a bit, I think more private investigator than hitman, but he has a very hitman-y vibe.
He does. He's got the evil, weird kind of vibe about himself. And no, I think he's there to get the dirt on the girls and take the shot that they need, doesn't he? And he's never failed. And his accent does change throughout the film, because at the end, when he's remorseful because they push him over and then he realizes the errors of his ways, he becomes really, really northern. He's like, I'm sorry, I'm wasting my life. I don't know why I've been doing this. It's like, just because a bunch of girls pushed him over. Yeah. He must have been like, yeah, I need to do something here because this is a bit shit.
It's astounding. It really is.
And then on top of all of that going on, you think that would be enough. But no. Suddenly, movie producers turn up as well and start pitching a movie. Yeah.
Norm from Cheers is suddenly a movie producer, and are they telling the story of what's happening in the actual film that you're watching that they're a part of? At one point, it feels like they're almost narrating it, didn't they? In the dressing room, they start doing that, and you're like, what is going on? What are they trying to? Are they trying to make the Spice World movie, or is the movie the one they're talking about, the thing that's happening? It genuinely was giving me a migraine. So
they turn up about 3 times and they pitch about 3 different films to Richard E. Grant. Did you notice that half the cast don't actually have any screen time or any interaction with the Spice Girls at all?
Very much so. Yeah, it's like there was a bit that the Spice Girls did, and then they made the rest of the movie with all the other people, and they mainly interacted with each other. That was the majority of the stuff. Like, what was with the alien scene?
What was that? So to give context, all the bus's toilets are broken down. So they must have more than one. So they have to stop because they're randomly driving through the countryside in the middle of the night. So they all stop and all the Spice Girls get off, deciding that they need to go for a pee. They walk what seems like miles through this forest for some reason, and then come across a UFO where these randy space aliens who's trying to touch them up.
They really were. They were trying to touch Jerry's boobs, weren't they? It was like, what's going on?
And she just laughs at, and then she's like, oh, give him a kiss, Jerry. Oh yeah, give him a bit. And then they all start taking. And why can they understand them all of a sudden? Because they're doing these clickers and they're like, oh yes, you're a big fan of us. They just understood. I just think, again, it was one of these messed up moments that I had to stop it at that point because I got so angry. Going, what is going on here? Why is this happening?
Why am I watching this? And do you know what it made me realise? Why I never watched this movie in 1997 or until 2021 when I was forced to watch it for this very purpose. But you know what? I feel like I have seen it now and I never ever need to see it again.
I don't think I could ever watch this again. No. So, well, I cover some more cameos while we're talking about it. So they go to a party. Jennifer Saunders is there. She's very excited. In fact, she's actually quite good because she's like, "Where's the Spice Girls? Look, I'm talking to the Spice Girls." Then they do Bob Geldof's hair for some reason. He doesn't like that very much. And that's where the random pregnant woman turns up again. And they leave her, so she's sad, and all she's got is one grape, and she puts the grape back for some reason. And then Richard O'Brien head with all the fruit on like the plate of fruit is on his head. He pops up out this table. I don't know about you. I've never seen many tables with holes in it ready for him to be there. And they make a comment about the Pope, and that's kind of what drives it along, where they say something about the Pope that's not relevant at all.
Oh, you mean Richard Thingy? Because I think you said
Richard O'Brien.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, no. Apologies. Richard O'Brien's the guy trying to get dirt on them. He pops out the table.
Yeah.
And then
exactly.
and then what you say is they go off to Milan and they do this. Well, they do a very unfortunate song, really, don't they?
They did. They performed a song by a somewhat disgraced artist. We won't give it any publicity or any light day, but it is on YouTube if you want to go and see them singing it. Not one that you could probably pick up now, but I believe they did sing this at a few of their concerts as well, so that's probably where that comes from. But
they did cut him out of the show, out the film, because he also was in the film. I think they did cut him out, but they decided to keep the song in, and it goes something along the lines. It's something about being in a gang.
I think that was but not a child sex trafficking gang, fortunately.
Exactly, but they get really offended because behind them is I suppose a group of guys in really tight hot pants all thrusting away, and they didn't like that, so they're refusing to perform. And it's so funny because some of the girls are talking away to them, and Baby Spice is lamenting this guy about how many teddy bears she's got in her bed and why there'd be no room for him. And he just looks bemused. He's like, oh, I'm just stood here. I don't know what the hell you're going on about.
I'm working, love. I'm a dancer. I'm a professional. Why are you even suggesting that this wouldn't be the case?
So this is how anal I get with all this stuff, right? Because they come to a compromise. But the way they said it is we've made a compromisation.
It
Is that a word?
isn't. I think that's intentional.
Oh, okay.
Because they do another one later on that's very similar. I'm trying to think what the word was, but yeah, there's a thing to say. Oh, we're down with the kids because we're not super clever. We're just normal girls that have made it to be mass superstars.
Yeah. And then they come back from Milan. They go on the bus. They go into the field. They meet scary aliens who just want a ticket for their show, the show they're not going to perform. And then again, more random scenes with the chief, which he seems to be listening to everything that's going on inside the bus. Is the kind of the theme I
it's
took from
bugged,
that?
isn't it? I think that's the
Yeah.
yeah.
And the girls want the morning off.
Yeah, so there's loads of scenes like that, and they have a bit of a scene, don't they, with their friend who when they're talking about whether they should do the show or not, and what it was like before they were famous, and now that they are famous, and you know whether they should go and do it, and then that's when their friend's water breaks, and
Yeah, and that's a little bit later. There's a couple
it
more
is, but I mean,
crazy things. No, there's one thing I got to talk about. Well, two things actually before we get to that. Don't give that look. Don't give that look. I've got some things to say. So they want the morning off. He says no, but offers to buy them a chocolate Magnum instead.
I didn't know there was any other kind of Magnum.
and then they do come back and they go to a choreographer, a dance choreographer, a sergeant major dance instructor, which is just when you think it can't get any more mental. Michael Barrymore turns up in full number twos, military twos.
But what rank was he? Because he had stripes all the way down his arm. What was that
sergeant?
about?
He's a triple sergeant.
He's a triple something. I don't know.
He's a triple something, and he just does this mental performance with the girls. That again, they just said, Michael, do whatever you want to do, but just be funny, okay? You're going to teach the girls a dance routine.
So do whatever you want. Be all right at the back.
All right, yeah, all right. And then but it goes on for like 3 minutes. It goes on for ages and ages and ages.
Was there an assault course as well? And it's like
they're in the army uniforms, and then they go on to an assault course.
Yeah.
Randomly.
I mean, they stayed away from the swimming pool, fortunately, but
yeah,
that was probably best.
But yeah, let's keep it above the belt, mate. And then at the same time, Richard O'Brien is climbing out of a toilet to try and capture them. And then they're in a haunted house all of a sudden, and they all have the same dream,
which reminded me a little bit of the Backstreet Boys. You know, when they
they
did their
Backstreet's
back. Yeah, it's like they were trying to piggyback off that. Well, that was successful. We'll do a bit of that as well. Yeah. So a bit.
So pitch number 2 brings us to some more cameos. Pitch number 2 from the producers is Spice Force 5. Yes. And they all get not all of them get decent superpowers. I think three or four of them do. Victoria just meows for some reason, like a cat, and Jerry turns into Bob Hoskins.
She's a shapeshifter, isn't she? She can mimic other people, but yeah, randomly then Bob Hoskins is Jerry, and he says something like "girl power," and it's like, what a waste of Sir Bob, the late, great Sir Bob Hoskins. It is quite upsetting to see how many of the great actors that were in this movie have since passed away, and this has been on their CV at the end.
It's just been there. And then they decide to go a bit mental and spontaneously jump on a speedboat on the River Thames and sing "My Boy Lollipop," and which is probably for me got to be the worst speedboat driver. The fact that he dumps half of them into the Thames.
I mean, nobody wants that at the best of times, do they? And not many people survive it, to be honest, these days. So it's quite amusing.
And then following that, it's just, without going into every single scene, it's just a series of really just randomly placed vignettes, just where the girls split up. And then they think help me.
It ends basically with they go and they witness their friend giving birth. Then they go and do that. They're late for their show at the Albert Hall. They don't think they're gonna make it back on time. The third pitch is happening, and this is what the pitch is about, the way the film is going.
But they have all dispersed, and then they meet randomly at the same time at the same poster.
Yeah.
As well. And then
outside
the
cafe that's all closed down, and it feels very like there was about 15 ideas and they just stuck them all in the film, but they didn't have time to round any of them out.
It says Stephen Fry. We got Stephen Fry. Well, what could Stephen Fry do?
Make him a judge.
Make him a judge. How do we get them into court? I'll charge them with crime on pop music for making a really bad song. Right. Okay. That and that's their biggest fear, essentially. Yeah. Their biggest fear is that.
I mean, it was a bit late for that at that point. I mean, they were already kind of the Hannibal Lecter of the music world at this point. It was a bit late, apologizing for bad music, worried about bad music.
But it was so funny. And this is the only time I kind of chuckled, but not for the right reasons, because they're stood there at the post. They have this little scene, and they find themselves again, and all that. And then one of them says, "I've got an idea. Let's go." And they all just start randomly running in a direction, but you don't know what the idea is. You don't know what they're going to be doing. They themselves must be going, what is it? You've not explained that. Are they telepathic? Can they, some form of symbiosis between them where they're of the same mind? And and then they take their heavily pregnant friend to a nightclub, which is bordering on S&M. It's like very, very strange people in this nightclub.
And obviously then
immediately leave her.
Yeah. So I mean, let's skip forward to the bit where she's giving birth. Then they're supposed to be at this concert. And let's not forget, there's millions of people watching worldwide, if not billions. Apparently, it's going to be the biggest show of all time. They've not done sort of like a vocal warm up. They've not done a rehearsal, a blocking of anything. They're just going to turn up and perform. But then they're already late. They don't have costumes or anything on. They just sort of wait to see their friend give birth and then go.
Can we talk about Malcolm then? Let's talk about Malcolm quickly.
Go on then. Talk about Malcolm.
Do you remember Malcolm?
Malcolm.
So the Spice Girls so some of them, like Jerry's wearing marigolds for some reason. For 5 females. Now, I'm not suggesting that females naturally know anything about birth and babies and the whole process and stuff, but they genuinely don't seem to know about the process at all. Jerry's in marigolds. They don't really know what's going on. Duffy from Casualty turns up, if you remember.
She does.
The actress she does. And they're out in the waiting room, just waiting around. And these parents come up to them and say, "Look, our son's been in a coma for months. Would you please just come and talk to him in the hope that it wakes him up, in the hope that, it brings him round and stuff." And it's a long shot, but please help us. And this boy's called Malcolm. And so they do. They go and see, and they have a bit of a chat to Malcolm. And they offer to show him Jerry's tits. The dad is very happy. And Malcolm wakes up. Just like that. She's
like, "I don't think it will help." And he says, "It might." He wakes up and goes, "It might." And it's like, well, to be fair, kid, you played the long game there on that one, and I don't blame you. He was going, "You're going to have to bring me someone and show me you get them to show me their tits, and then I will leave the hospital bed. But not until that point, Dad. This is a long game we're playing here. Get one of the Spice Girls naked, or I'm staying."
But again, it's just there's no like, oh my God, if my son woke up after being in a coma for 3 months, there'd be tears. You'd be absolutely late. You'd be like, "Okay, talk to me. Do you know?" But it's just like, oh well, I kind of missed the chance on seeing Jerry's tits there. The funny thing is, right, there's this big build up to this baby being born. The baby's born, and they immediately leave.
Yeah, it's like, "Oh, you've given birth now, so it doesn't matter. I'm going now." I mean, but obviously they've got a concert to do. And they then have to fly across London to perform this concert, which of course they get there on time and they smash it out the park, and it's amazing.
Posh is the bus driver, Does
Yeah.
she have a license to drive that
Well,
massive double-decker bus?
I mean, you've seen some of the shoes she wears. I mean, she's steered worse things. I mean, she's been able to drive David Beckham's career beyond football. So if she can do that, she can do anything. So I think but what gets me, right, is they then perform, right? And it's being viewed all over the world. Everyone thinks it's amazing. Her friend who's just given birth, right, is sat upright with a baby who's about 8 months old, sat on her lap, dancing around. I'm sorry, if you've just passed something the size of a watermelon out of your vagina, you're not going to feel too much like bouncing around on a bed and getting all excited about a Spice Girls song. It just felt disingenuous, shall we say?
It does that scene tends to go on for too long. I don't know if you picked up on this as well. The scene changes from day to night to day to night in the same set of scenes constantly. It's like what? Because in the hospital it's night, and then it's day on the bus, then it's day again, then it's night again when they go into the. It's really, really weird how they do this change. But then suddenly the producers are talking about it, and then all these weird things like they jump Tower Bridge in a 14-ton double-decker bus.
Yeah.
And then there's a bomb on the bus.
Yeah, I mean, that was that Richard O'Brien had supposedly put a bomb on the bus. And I thought, he was just trying to create some sort of disparity between the group. I think he was trying to kill them. Yeah.
That would definitely do it. So I've got to cover this as well. Richard E. Grant has clearly lost his mind. He has gone insane 100%. Through the movie. 100%. He actually threatens to hang himself on stage. I'm going to go out on that stage. I'm going to address the audience, and I'm going to hang myself and commit suicide. And then the girls turn up, and they're all friends again.
Yeah, because it's all about unity and girl power. So,
that's the end of the film.
We're all about.
They sing on stage, and that's it.
And then, like you say, they had a little bit where they're talking to the camera. There's a few little asides, making it like they just finished filming, and it was all sort of a little bit behind the scenes, even though it was all set up. But it was when the Spice Girls are then talking to the audience in the cinema and going, "Oh, look, they're still there. Oh, look
he's snogging them.
Oh, yeah." But then Mel Brown says, I know what you're going to do after this is finished. You're going to go to the pub and then you're going to go to the chippy. Now, 90% of that audience is 12 years old. They're not going to the pub. The parents probably need to go to the pub after that because they need to drink so much they don't remember what they've just had to witness for the last hour and 20 minutes. But that's neither here nor there, really. And it does age it as well, because at one point, I think it's Baby says, they might be watching this on video.
That's right. She does. She does. If you watch this at home on video,
incredible.
So that was for me.
Yeah.
Now the whole film was bad for me, but that was that was the end of the end for me. That was the bit where
the nail in the coffin.
I threw him in my mouth a little bit. I felt that kind of, and yeah, I was just like, please end, please end, please end, please end.
Well, look, Mike, I think. We've talked it almost to death. I think this movie, considering how much neither of us particularly enjoyed it, I'm going to ask you for our usual rating out of 5. And if you could tell me how many zigazagars out of 5 do you give this movie, SpiceWorld?
Now, I would love to give this 0 zigazagars, but I know you can't. It has to sit on the rating scale. The most I can conjure for this one, and I'm being generous, is half a zigzagar.
That's a tough.
It's a half. It's a half, Steve. And why? Because for me, it felt really rushed. It felt like they didn't really know what they were doing. Now I know it made lots of money, and it's on the power of their popularity that it did that. The film's neither culty nor clever, nor just downright stupid and spoofy. It just falls somewhere completely alone. I couldn't even classify it other than this should never have seen the light of day ever. It made £75 million. I'm sure it made everyone involved very, very rich. And they, if it was me, would I have done it at the height of our popularity? Absolutely, I would. But having to endure it as an audience member, half a zigzagar.
Well, I do agree with you. I'm going to give it the 1 zigzagar, though. I'm going to add that little bit extra because They did have Roger Moore and Bob Hoskins and Richard E. Grant
Roger
in it,
Moore
which
feeding
could have
the
been.
pig.
Yeah, exactly. And if those three had just been in it, that might have been a whole different movie that we'd have probably enjoyed. So just for their participation, I'm going to give it the 1 cigar out of 5. So we do apologize. You know, we've gone back into the annals of time, and Sam's favorite movie. We don't agree with Sam that this was a great movie. It really wasn't. Okay. If you want to go and watch it, it is out there. I think you can watch the entire movie on YouTube if you have the patience and the inclination to do so. Mike, I wanted to also do a little shout out to another podcast who friends of the show and have mentioned us recently, and that's the Unscripted Script Show. If anybody likes what we do normally, not in the movie show podcast that we do, but with our stuff when we're reading the Last Resort scripts, then go and give them a listen as well, because they've got some really funny stuff on their in their back catalogue where they've read other people's scripts out and critique them. So have a listen to that if you get a chance to. Mike, we are moving to fortnightly episodes. We've announced this on social media now because we are furiously now writing season 2 of The Last Resort. Are you excited about this process?
I am excited because we've completed this synopsis of where it's going to go. So we have an idea. So yeah, I'm really excited. And I think, you know, asking our listeners to enjoy these films on a weekly basis is probably a lot to ask. So we think we'll give you a little bit of downtime because we know we've kind of gone hell for leather and produced so much. This just gives people a bit of a chance to catch up with us.
Absolutely. And you know what? There's the whole back catalogue of our scripted episodes to listen to if you really want to pick up and remember what happened in The Last Resort. There's all these movie episodes too, and we're still going to be there on social media. We're still going to be out there putting fortnightly episodes out from now right through the rest of the year. So do make sure you tune into those as they happen. Mike, is there anything you wanted to close the episode with tonight?
Viva forever.
Viva forever. And on that note, thank you again for joining us here on the Bad Scripts Last Resort Movie Club. We will see you next time for another movie. Take care. Bad Scripts was written and performed by Mike Garlia and Steve Jones, a Beach Tide production.